have so many food stories that I grew up with. And so wherever you're at in your journey, the first one I just want you to be curious about is, do I have a pang of hunger or do I have a pang of fullness? That's all I
Yeah.
want you to get curious about in the beginning. And just, do I hear those and do I squash them?
Welcome back to another episode of Magic's in the Mess, the go-to podcast for ambitious women ready to stop pretending, start aligning, and finally build success your way. I'm your host, Danielle McKinley, speaker, business and wealth strategist, and your go-to problem-solving hype girl. Here, we'll help you unlock powerful mindset shifts, discover your magic, and bring your dream life into reality. Each week, I'll deliver raw stories, proven business strategies, and powerful transformations with industry leaders to activate the magic in you. So if you're ready to ditch the pressure, the performative BS, and the noise telling you who you should be, hit subscribe and let's make some magic. Welcome back, Magic Makers. Today's guest, I am so excited to share with you. Her name is Samantha Schmuck. She is a holistic stress management coach, educator, and the founder of Revived Living. Over the past 8 years, she's helped more than 1,000 high achieving women ditch burnout, ditch toxins, and finally reconnect with their bodies. And she does this through her signature VIBE and embodiment method and her VIBE Tribe membership. So, what Samantha does is she blends science, spirituality, and strategy to help women reduce emotional and chemical stress, release stuck patterns, and fully step into the life they were made for. I've personally seen her in action. Her energy is absolutely magnetic. Her wisdom is next level. And I promise this conversation is going to shift something in you. Welcome back, Magic Makers. Today I have my dear friend Samantha with me, and I cannot wait to dive into her story. What's up, Samantha?
Hello, I'm so excited to dive in.
You guys, so I have to tell you, so I met Samantha at a retreat in Florida, and you know when you meet those people and you're just like, yep, we are a vibe. This is going to work out. It was like that, but we didn't get to go super deep because it's a retreat, there's lots of women. And then on a whim in January, we went to the same conference and she stayed with me. We had to spend the night. And I feel like if you want to get to know someone, like do a trip with them, have a sleepover and just let the chats flow. And I'm
Mhm.
just so excited. I learned so much about you during that time. And I feel like you're stuck with me for life.
I'm here to be stuck because I feel the similar, and just like how gracious you were to like we scratch the surface of getting to know each other. And I was like, hey, I'm going to this event, where are you staying? And you're like, just stay with me. And I was like, I mean, if you're game, I'm game. And it was like the most kismet thing for us to go deeper, get to know each other, because those conferences and retreats, you're trying to fit so much in, and you can only go so deep in that amount of time. So I was very grateful to get to have that extra little bit with you.
Same, same, same. And I got to learn so much about your journey and the event that we did. You shared a ton of your story.
Mhm.
So let's like just jump right in. So experiencing vibe was awesome. So that happened at the retreat, but then I
Mhm.
got to really deeply understand like where vibe came from on your healing journey. So take us back a little bit to, tell us a little bit about yourself, why,
Mhm.
you do what you do, and then like let's start from the beginning of the journey.
Cool. So, I am a holistic trust management coach, and I love helping high achievers, high performers really find peace in the chaos. So many are great with having the great Instagram, great resume, great things on the surface, but oftentimes behind closed doors, they're just trying to keep it all together, and they can make so much look so easeful in their everyday lives, but not other people not realizing how much it's taking from them behind the scenes to make it look that easeful. And so I love helping them build their toolbox of little itty bitty ways to help ease that stress, improve their capacity, and ultimately just have more peace in the process. So that way their life feels as good as it's looking to other people. Because when there is that disconnect and everyone's telling you, oh my God, everything must be so amazing, and your brain's like, yes, and it can feel really weird. And like, do I have the space to tell them, like, yeah, it's amazing, but also here's what's actually happening behind the scenes. So I love providing that safe space for people, because for the longest time, I didn't feel like I had a space or even really the words to describe what I was going through, to articulate it. But I was also a teenager at the time, whereas, today I'm working with adult women. So when I think about mess, this was my first mess that I really went through. So I had grown up as a competitive gymnast and really learned just to perform. And I learned that emotions were weak and that you just had to be stronger. You just had to push through. And a lot of it was mind over body. When you're working out 4 hours a day, 20 plus hours a week, you're still juggling school, you're juggling all these things. It was just mind over matter. Keep going. Your
Mhm.
body can do more than you think, which is true a lot of the times. And I love that that was a skill set that I was taught, because it can really be used in very, very specific windows. But we cannot live our lives in that drive mode. We have to honor this is a body, just like our car is a car that needs to be serviced. It needs gas, it needs all of these different things to really get the most out of it. So I was a gymnast for about 7 years competitively. And when I was about 12 years old, I started to get wrist inflammation, which is not uncommon for gymnasts. It's a high impact sport. But then it started to really spread across my body. And within a year's time, it was my entire body. And it got to the point where even just like the tenderest, gentlest touch was so painful. And the doctors couldn't figure out why. I had gone to all the top doctors in Michigan. I had taken time out of school, out of practice, to drive, to get testing, to try shots and supplements and all these different things. And every test was coming up negative or inconclusive. We can see inflammation in your body, but we really don't know what that driving factor is. And so ultimately, the decision that they made was, you just have to quit the sport. Maybe it's your
Mhm.
growth plates. Maybe once you make it through puberty and they close, maybe it'll
Yeah.
go away, but it really was a huge maybe. And so I lost my community, my identity as a gymnast, like everything that my life was built around, what felt like overnight. And I was just left with this immense amount of pain and no pathway or hope for it to get better. And so that really led me down just years of being in the mess of
Yeah.
depression, anxiety, self harm, suicidal ideation, all of the things, because I didn't know, if I'm in this amount of pain and after multiple years, it hadn't decreased without excessive amount of exercise and movement. It was like, I don't want to live more and more decades when everyone's just telling me, just wait till you get older. It's only going to get worse. It's like, thanks. Super helpful.
Yeah. Making me feel like I have options. Great.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So, wow. So you're a teenager.
Hmm.
All you've known, like your joy comes from your sport,
Hmm.
and you are being told, you're basically given no answers, right? So take us back to that moment. What's going on in your mind? What thoughts are you having? Where are you at?
Oh man. I mean, there was so much confusion and so much anger, because it started to get to the point. I remember this conversation that I had with my dad, and he was like, it's okay if you want to quit. Like, you don't have to. He wasn't saying that I was making it up, but again, like from the top experts who they should have these types of answers, it was starting to get to the place where it was like, is it in her head? And so he was like, you can quit. Like, we don't need you to do this. We're not forcing you to do this. Like, you have we want you to know you have the option to quit and not feel bad about it. Like, we don't have to go to these ends in order to leave the sport. And so once it started to get to that point, there was so much anger, because there was just this raging fire and pain within me, but I looked like the picture of health. And so I
Mm.
felt so much guilt around, being in practice and just my coaches thinking I was making excuses because I didn't want to condition or I didn't want to do that drill because it hurt. And so
Mm.
there was this weird game in gymnastics at the time that I was growing up, and hopefully it's changed some and maybe it hasn't. But there was this feeling of, is she making it up to get out of it, to make it easier on herself? And so that was this like anger that was really fueling me of, I'm not making this up, this hurts, but I don't want know what to do, I don't want to be seen as weak and slacking and all of these things.
Yeah. So I feel like you can relate that to a number of things where I feel like we ignore the signs in our body until it's like enough and it
Mhm.
forces us to. So would you say that in your journey, that's where it got?
Yeah, I mean, and it's for me at that point, it was less of, and I did not have this verbiage way back when
Sure.
it, because I was speaking to the pain in the body. I was saying
Okay.
my wrist hurt, I got wrist little
Cords.
grips so that way they
Yeah.
don't bend as much. I'm having this pain, so now here's a cream. Like I was speaking to the physical pain, but I was not speaking to the emotional pain. I wasn't even looking at the emotional pain because that wasn't okay to do. And so for me, and what I've learned over the years is you can only ignore the emotional pain so much before the body physically speaks up.
Sure. Okay. So what would you say? What maybe then are some of the early signs that if someone is struggling, that they could be easily overlooked?
Mm,
And if you pay a little bit of attention, you might save yourself from a lot of that physical pain.
yeah. I would say one of the first signs is, are you able to sit in stillness with yourself? That is a good kind of litmus test to see how uncomfortable you get with that silence. A lot of overachievers pack their schedules, and sometimes it's like, oh, well, I'm just wanting to achieve, I'm wanting to hit the goal. But if any time you have downtime, you're like, oh, my friend needs help, let me go help them. Oh, this person, and you're trying to help every single person but yourself, and just giving yourself downtime, or you see downtime as lazy, or you've got some form of a story around that downtime being negative, that is a good indicator of like, there's probably something in the under the surface that we could look at. And it's not necessarily mean that it's bad, but it just needs to process and to integrate so your body's not trying to hold it for you.
Yeah, I love that. It's a simple one that we can do, right? And I know that there's somebody listening that's like, oh, shoot, that's
Say
me,
another one. Say
right?
another one.
Yes. So hang out with us because Sam's going to give us some really great tips and there's some ways that she can help you with that. So tell me a little bit about because through this pain and through this journey, you've built something really incredible to help. Basically, you've done what all real entrepreneurs do is you're solving for something you wish you had in the moment,
Yep.
right? So, going from the physical pain to where you are now, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned if you look back on the journey?
Hmm. Oh my gosh, such a good question. What is the biggest lesson that I've learned? I mean, that it's kind of repeating what we've already said, but that was like a total game changer for me when I just realized that emotional pain could manifest as physical pain. I think it's so
Sure.
easy that when we feel physical pain, that we only address it in that way. And there's a book called The Divided Mind. I want to say his name's John Sarno who wrote it. But he's speaking about how it's so much easier for us to focus on physical pain than it is
Mhm.
emotional pain. And so our body and our conscious and our subconscious will manifest this physical pain to distract us from even like getting curious of like what other pain could be going on. And so that to me
Sure.
was like the most mind-blowing lesson of it all, that there's emotion and physical pain, and there's both. And so that was to me the biggest one, and just that I can feel my emotions. I had become so dissociated and numb from my emotions in order to not feel the actual physical pain, but to also
Sure.
not feel the depths of the depression and the really, really scary thoughts that were coming up for me. So for years, I had just completely shut off my emotions. And when I did make that decision of like, you know what, I'm going to choose to stay. I don't know how it's going to get better, but I'm committed to walking that journey. And I had this experience at this retreat where I realized how numb I had become. And I was like, okay, you said you were going to stay here. You said you were going to live, but you're not living, you're just existing. And to how to find my way back to those emotions that felt authentic. Because if you or
Mhm.
anybody here has experienced depression, and especially I experienced depression for like a good 7 years on and off, but more on than off. So when you do start to experience lighter emotions, healthier emotions, joyous emotions, your brain wants to be like, but is that real? Because the
Mhm.
darkness, that feels super real, that feels really tangible. But I'm scared to feel this joy because what if I feel the darkness again? And then it just slips away. So your brain kind of wants to trick you to like, I can survive the darkness. Let's just stay here. And to actually, oh, how do I actually feel this joy and it be authentic and it not feel like, oh, was that just fake in that one moment? Like, was that actually real? So I think that journey of refinding authentic emotions was also another one of the biggest gifts out of it all.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think even just that is such a great tip that if you're because I feel like so many people are suffering depression in silence, like meaning they don't realize that that's what's happening. I had postpartum depression and I had no idea. I'm an
Mm,
overachiever. I'm a go 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 type person. I'm genuinely pretty positive, and I just thought, man, I'm just really stressed out. So I kept
mhm,
pushing away the emotion, and so I think, and then I also started to kind of not wanna do things that used to really light me up. Like, I didn't wanna go to family game night. I didn't wanna leave my
mm.
house. I just thought, "Oh, it's because I'm tired. It's because I'm
Just
stressed out." I would just excuse it away,
mm,
and I think that especially if you're someone who tends to operate more on the positive, happy, high energy frequency, I guess we could call it, and you're going through it, sometimes it can be easily missed. Would you
yeah.
say that you see that as well?
Well, it's that not wanting to accept. Like that's for other people. Like I'm not one of those people. Like depression's not going to catch me type
Sure.
thing. And it is easy when you do typically live in that positive place where you again it starts to creep in, you start to feel it and you're like I don't want to feel that. Like that can't be real. That can't be what I'm experiencing. And so again, we try to distract, we try to numb, but again, the body is starting to speak up where all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And like we start to shrink and pull back and isolate ourselves. But the brain is so ninja and so smart, and it's going to give us a reason, an excuse of why we're choosing to do that. When it's like, okay, we've got to kind of pull back and look at all the bigger signs. And we're like, oh, I wouldn't have noticed it. But yeah, that's actually what I'm doing. Because for me, when I did quit gymnastics, I want to say it was maybe a year or so had gone by of me just not knowing what to do with myself and not having
Yeah.
any after school friends because they were all in gymnastics, and just like sitting with myself. And so I would watch all the soap operas with my mom, but like I hadn't really watched TV because I had never had the time for it. So then my mom was like, oh, now you're just sitting here all the time. So she helped me get a part time job that basically replaced my gymnastics hours. And so it gave me
Mm.
that structure back. But again, on the surface, I have a part time job. I'm an honor roll student at school. I'm, on the surface happy to everybody else, but behind closed doors in here, I know the truth of what I'm feeling, I'm experiencing, even if I'm trying to show up and go through life and help everybody and tend to everything. And, you can even just look at Anthony Bourdain, Kate Spade, like some of the most
Yeah.
highest achieving people. All of a sudden, you're like, wait, what happened? And it's because it is something that we do suffer in silence. And as much as we talk about it to this day and age, there's still I don't think you could ever talk about depression enough and people still feel seen in it because it's such a
Sure.
unique journey in and of itself, such a mind trick of itself, and it isolates us in our own unique ways, even if on the surface we're still showing up. So I remember joking with this one boyfriend of mine in college that it was not in a healthy way, but I was like, I have high functioning depression.
Yeah, that's what I said it was for me, and that was, like, my brain's way of being like, "But you're fine.
Hmm.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So some of the things that I've heard you say this before, and so I want the listeners to get the gift of it.
Okay.
And it's that the body holds wisdom, right? I've heard you say that many, many times. Can you break down with us what you mean by that?
Yeah. I mean, it's always talking to us, but we learn a language growing up, whatever was our household language, whatever the language where we go to school at, but we're not taught the language of our bodies. A little bit, when it comes to potty training and stuff, like we start to learn these messages when we're infants. We honor them when we're infants. We're hungry, we cry. We're this, like we kind of respond very naturally to that wisdom that our body is giving us because
Mhm.
we don't have words just yet. So before we get words, we're actually really truthfully honoring the signals from the body because that's the only way we know how to operate with that survival instinct that's wired in. But as soon as we start to grow up and we start to see the stories, those unspoken behaviors and beliefs in our household, we start to subconsciously take them on. We get into the school system. If you go to the school system, or maybe you were homeschooled, but if you go into, say, public school or even private school, you got to get there at a certain time. Your specific lunch time is this, then this. You are in a chair, you have to sit still. And so we get to this place where, as we're developing, that we're told, actually, those signals that your body's telling us, you should ignore them because it's um, more appropriate, more convenient to ignore that signal from your body so that way you can show up in this socially acceptable way. And whether it's TV, programming, movies, magazines back in the day, I think they're still digitally around, but there's this social programming that tells us what is acceptable in our body.
Yeah.
For me, growing up, I was this very stocky, very ripped gymnast. And these very long anorexic models were what was in. And so,
Mhm.
in today's world, everyone's like, oh my God, your body is so this and this and this. And I'm like, you can tell me that. But the inner story that I know about my body is that it didn't belong because it didn't fit the mold back in the day when I still had this exact body that it's showing up as today. So it's interesting to see, like, as you go throughout life and growing up and getting curious, like, ooh, where did I get that story? Where did I
Yeah.
have an urge from my body that it told me it needed something and I wanted to act on it, but I told, like, hey, that's not convenient right now. You got to
Yeah.
sit there.
So if someone's listening to this and they're going, "Okay, I've definitely pushed down the notifications from my
Yeah.
body. Like notifications are off, right? And I want to turn them
I love
on. What are some things that we could do to bring back the awareness to where we can start to let our body be our guide
that.
and help us improve?"
So good. Oh, so good. I would say one of, like, the quickest first ones that you can do is around your hunger, because our hunger
Mhm.
is nonstop every day. It's something that we have to do as humans. And it's also the one that we have the most conditioning around. So it's
Yeah.
the first one that I would get curious about, but be compassionate and graceful for yourself in terms of how quickly you're able to implement or make changes around it. Also, depending on your work day and what your breaks are, like all the different pieces. But I'm imagining we're talking to a lot of entrepreneurs here who have time control over their
Mhm.
day. So you also have to take that into account. But if you are an entrepreneur and you schedule meetings 9 to 5 and there's no wiggle room, there's no breaks, there's no time to eat in there, like that is your responsibility to look at and say, hey, I have the power to make a choice of how my day rolls, of how time is spent, and how I show up and nourish myself. And if I don't show up and nourish myself, how can I be as powerful for my team, for my clients, and the impact that I'm ultimately wanting to make? So the first one that you can get curious about is your hunger, but also just get curious of all the story. I have so many food stories that I grew up with. And so wherever you're at in your journey, the first one I just want you to be curious about is, do I have a pang of hunger or do I have a pang of fullness? That's all I
Yeah.
want you to get curious about in the beginning. And just, do I hear those and do I squash them? So, like, what is your initial instinct? Do I hear it and take action or get curious? What's the plan? Or do I immediately just hear it and overlook it?
Yeah, like,
Um,
I gotta keep going. Next
yep,
meeting, next meeting.
yep.
No, I mean, that's such a great one to start with because I also feel like it forces you to sit with yourself, to, like, take a minute and be like, "Wait a second, what's going on?" Because so often we just plow through our day
Mhm,
and we're like, on to the next," like, especially if you work at home and you're a parent and you go from your office in your house to your living room with your children, and there's no moment for you to be like, "What do I need? Do I need anything?" before switching from professional hat to mom hat. So I really love that one, and I
mhm.
hear all the time, "Oh, I forgot to eat today."
Right? I
Right? "Oh,
see
I
so
forgot
many
to eat today."
stories of these women showing all the things they accomplished during the day, and then it's like 9:30 at night, and they're like, "Eating for the first time is not a badge of honor, ladies. You
Yeah,
need nourishment to show up, and you can be that powerful in a day. You can be that powerful in a week, a year, 2 years, 3 years, but it does eventually catch up with us. Our hormones, imagine, I always love this analogy, but, if you take a plane and you divert that plane 1 degree from start to its destination, it's not going to hit the destination. It's going to be thousands of miles away from that destination just because of that 1 degree shift. And our hormones are that 1 degree shift. They don't necessarily change overnight from one decision, but our body listens to us and it tries to adapt and it tries to be resilient and it says, this is the environment we live in. Oh, shoot, I got to adapt and I got to be resilient to survive because
yeah.
that's all the body knows, to survive. It's here to survive. We have the conscious mind to thrive. And so we have to look at that and say, what is the environment that I'm creating for my body, not just today, but for me, with everything that I went through with my health as a young girl? I truly know that health is the most important asset that we have. And without it, literally nothing else in life can like fill that hole and fill that gap for us. And so that 1% of how you show up every day, it could be changing it. And you might not feel the effects of it for a year, 5 years, 10 years, but we are making those deposits or withdrawals from the bank every day. And the body will eventually be like, hey, I can't do it anymore. And a lot of high achieving entrepreneurs just wind up in the hospital because they override all those itty bitty miniature little signals along the
Yeah.
way until they just run into that wall. And they're like, I don't know what happened. How did I get here? And it's like, we know how we got here, but how do we make a different plan moving forward?
Yeah, and there's so many of us that have unfortunately experienced burnout. If you've been listening to Magic's in the Mess for a while now, you know that my body forced me to see my burnout.
Yeah.
I dislocated my shoulder in my sleep. Yes, sleeping. Nothing magical, no big trauma, no big cool story. Literally so stressed out that I gave myself adrenal fatigue because I was go,
Mhm.
go, 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 go. And you don't want to get to that point. And I love the work that you do because not only do you help someone like me, wish I would have had you back then in my life, overcome it if it does get to that extreme, but you also have helped thousands of women put solutions in place to prevent that from happening. So let's talk a little bit about the work that you do with Vibe, your immersion courses, and some of the ways that the listeners could come work with you. As you can see, you guys, she is a wealth of knowledge. I love the analogies that you use.
I
So
love a
tell
good
us a little
analogy.
bit about like you have such a great you do such a great job of mixing science, spirituality, and strategy. So let's jump into that.
Yay! I love that. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things, especially it's I don't get to do it as much in like my membership or even in like my group programs, but whenever I get to work one on one with someone and we get to really dive deep into who they are and the stories that are driving their behaviors, you'll get some really, really fun and colorful analogies that come up along the way for me. But it is so with everything that I experienced, I knew I needed to find a way to feel again. And I needed a way to process emotions that I did not know how to articulate. I had tried going to therapy as a teenager, and I did get yelled at for not wanting to take the antidepressants and got a little berated for that. And I was like, ooh, this is not the pathway for me. I knew I went through something that completely altered my life, and I needed a way to process it, but I didn't even know how to think about it, how to frame it in my mind. Like, it was just way above the tools that I had. And so I was like, okay, I need to process this, and I also need a way to feel safe in my body again. And so I
Yeah.
went on this mission with myself, and then through in college, I got my degree in health coaching. So that's psychology, anatomy, and physiology, as well as nutrition. And then I continued to get additional health coach certifications, life coach certifications, and advanced transformational coaching, which is really that behavior change piece. And so as I was going through this myself to learn how to do it for other people, obviously I'm a first client first, especially with everything that I had gone through. And so I'm taking all of these coach trainings and techniques and parts work and timeline work to really get to the root of psychology and behavior and applying it with myself. And so I did this through a technique that is now called VIBE and Embodiment. And it's combining music, movement, and visualization. And those visualizations really are those advanced coaching techniques that I learned throughout my certifications. And so what you're doing in that is you're allowing yourself to connect to this body, because so often we're connected up here, and the
Mhm.
strategy and the thought and the doing, and really that masculine energy that so many high achieving women are locked in, and is bringing us back down into feeling that wisdom of the body, to reconnecting to our intuition, reconnecting to that feminine energy and flow, and allowing all of these things to integrate as really as well as dancing kind of with your soul. So it's dancing with this other part of you, this physical body, but also this soul that's infusing it, and allowing yourself to process all the things that are coming up. And one of the things that I love music being a part of it was that was my bridge to feeling again and it being authentic, because I was like, okay, I don't know how to feel these things. So, what makes sense to me? I always loved music, but I used music to my detriment. I really hung out in that emo
Mm.
category for a long time of like, everyone knows my pain. They get it. But I was like, how do I feel those other emotions? And so I would take songs and I would imagine, okay, if I wrote this song, if these were my emotions, what would that feel like in my body? If I were to articulate this with my body, if my body was the journal, instead of
Yeah.
my hand in the pen, if my body was telling this story, would it be heavy? Would it be this? Like, how would it feel to really like embody that emotion? And
Mhm.
so that bridged into what I teach people today, which is vibe and embodiment, and how to do that and not just process the past and integrate the past, but also expand into the future, to
Yeah.
step into a new belief state. Because in order to grow, we got to step out of our comfort zone. And one of the things that I learned as a gymnast was that visualization and that mental rehearsal of your routine. Because the more that you mentally rehearse with visualization, your body doesn't know the difference between a thought and a real life event. And so, how can we utilize that and to maximize what we're doing in life? And so, the more times that you're like, you know what, I've got this speaking event, like where Danielle and I met for our second in person hang, my knees are shaking, I'm sweating, I'm nervous, what am I going to say the wrong thing? And so how do you step into the confidence of somebody who
Mhm.
performs in front of tens of thousands of people, and to be in that energy and to take up space, but to then fuse of, I'm already giving this speech, but I'm giving it in this energy, and this is how I want to feel in my body when I'm on the stage. So that way, when you're doing the thing, you're on the stage, you're in that expanded state, it actually feels familiar already because you've
Mhm.
already stepped into it, you've visualized it, and now you're just living it in real life. So it gives you just that extra bit of mental rehearsal and prep to go do those expanded things that you're wanting to do without them feeling so freak outish when you go to do it. So that's one of my favorite ways. And we get to do that in the membership. And so with the membership, I always love to think like, you've done the work. You truly are ready for just the expansion and help continuing to build that momentum and to realign your mind, to focus your energy and to move forward with it. But if you are someone who you're like, I'm not connected to my body, I've got
Mhm.
all these stories about who I am and what it means to move and to take up space and to express myself, that's where you would join us in the immersion. And that's an 8-week program where I give you my entire toolkit to vibe all of those advanced visualizations. So truly, no matter what you're going through, no matter where you're at in the world, after those 8 weeks, you now have this combination of tools to be like, okay, I'm feeling X. It's coming from this. It's coming from this. Okay, I've got this tool, this tool, this tool. Perfect. I've got a way to show up for myself, to process this, to integrate this, so I can ultimately expand into my highest self and that next step forward.
I love that. So I'm going to give you a shout out here because I got to experience your Vibe and Embodiment live, and it is so awesome. It's fun to do. Like, I could see how great it is virtually. It's great to do in person. If you get to experience it at a retreat, you are blessed. And it's such a great reminder because music connects all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so one of the things that I'm hoping we can maybe offer the listeners today is a link to one of your favorite playlists. So one of the things that
Yes.
Samantha and I love to do is we love to just randomly, we don't even say anything. We just send a song.
Link.
There's literally like no text or anything. It's just the song. And it is so much fun. So I also encourage you to find a buddy that's leveling up or maybe struggling with the same thing that you are, and even just do that for one another. A song that you're like, you know what, that lifted me up. Share it with your friend or somebody you know that it could mean something to. So
100%.
those programs are incredible and you have helped so many people. Where can they find more information about the programs?
Yes. So my website is just launching. So I finally went through a big rebrand and I'm so excited to share
Woo-woo!
it. So to find out more information, you can head to revived-living.com. You can find me on socials at I am Revived Living is the company one, or you can find my personal one, Vibe with Sam Schmuck.
Oh, it's the best. Okay, amazing. And we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. So if you're walking, if you're working out, if you're jamming out to this podcast in your car, don't worry, we got you. Okay, let's do something fun. I want to do a fun lightning round with you. Are you open for
Okay,
it?
let's go. Well,
Okay, cool. So first question is going to be, what's your go-to to regulate your nervous system when you're having a rough day?
I would say my absolute go-to, it's called neurovascular points. Donna Eden talks about them, but like the one go-to point I would say that I'll share with everyone is temples with your thumbs, point your middle finger right in the middle, right above your eyes, hold it, release those shoulders in through the nose, out through the mouth. This is anger and this is overwhelm. And it's like a good like one-stop shop. If you're like, my nervous system's freaking out, hold your points.
Oh my gosh, I love this. Okay, and if you're listening to this and you want to see the demonstration she just gave because it's perfect, you got to go and check it out on YouTube. Okay. What's one, because you do a really good job of being toxic free with your products. You've stayed with me. We've like had spend the nights. So I've seen the things that we're using. So what's one toxin free swap that changed your life?
I would say laundry. Well,
Mm,
I would say laundry, but I would say even before I did laundry, because it sent me down to the laundry chain, was removing fragrance.
yeah.
Fragrance is in literally everything,
Yep.
and you won't realize how much it affects you until you remove it. And then you go into a building, an Airbnb, or someone else's house that
Yep.
has Glad air fresheners everywhere. It is mind boggling how, like, ugh, to you it will be after you remove it.
It's horrible. I just went to a trip to Ohio, and from the airport to our friend's house, the Uber had 3 of those plugins, like, in the air filters,
Oh,
and I was with, my friend Kristen, and
you're
I'm
just like
looking
at
at
the
her,
window.
she's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "I have to get the heck out of this car. It's making me sick."
It's
Like,
hard.
instant headache, instant, like, nausea, and then you get out and you feel fine. So I
Yep.
totally agree with that. Okay, love it. What's something most people misunderstand about stress?
Mm. Ooh, okay. Give me a second on this one. Okay. I was like, what do I want to say about this one? This is the thing that I come up against a lot when I'm working with different people, but I just have to get through this then. There's never
Ah.
a then. There's always more. And we
Yeah.
have to learn how to show up for ourselves no matter how chaotic it is, because if we don't up for ourselves now, it's just gonna get worse. Like we're either gonna have less capacity and then more stress happens that then takes us out. But there is never once I get through this, everything's gonna calm down. Life is funny like that.
Life is going to be lifing. And if it's not that stress, it's another stress.
Yep.
So I think what you're saying is we have to learn how to manage the stress.
We do. Yep.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be different forms. So we have to build those tools so that way any stress that does come in, it's like, I got this.
I love it. Okay. Final question. A moment you realized, damn, I'm really doing the work.
I would say I mean, there was just multiple scenarios that came up for me in the last week where there's these micro moments and I can feel myself processing it as
Mhm.
something's happening versus being that deer in the headlights, being like, I don't have the reserves, the tools to process this, push it down, I'll figure it out one day. And like I can literally feel myself processing it, integrating it in that moment, and also recalibrating my nervous system at the same time. I can give examples if you want me to, but lightning round.
No, I love it. Give us one example because I know so many people can relate to that.
Yeah. I would say that quick two. One was a near death car accident that almost happened, but it didn't,
How do we
thankfully.
make that a quick two?
Quick two. Yeah, it was like somebody pulled out right in front of me at the last second, and it was a full family, and I almost like smacked right into the little girl at the back of the car. And
Oh,
it was just one of those like, do that if it's just you driving, but why on earth would you make that decision with your littlest at the very back of the car? And so it was like the shock, the anger, the like all of the emotions like coming to the surface and wanting to
yeah.
spill over, but just like being able to sit and witness every layer of emotion and then recalibrate, breathe, and reset my nervous system. So that was one. And then the other, I unexpectedly had a family member tell me something huge about something and then not wanting me to tell anyone else about it.
Oh,
And so it was one of those like, okay, I didn't know that's what I was being called up here for. And this is a big responsibility to hold this information and to also show up emotionally for them in that moment. But then what does this mean for me? And like those greater questions after the fact. And so, yeah, being able to feel my emotions, the shock of it, the waves of it. And again, just like a lot of it really is just being able to be present enough to
mhm.
witness the fluttering of thoughts, emotions, physical reactions to it, and then moving through that wave and then being in that bounce back of, okay, am I taking a bigger breath? Am I choosing a more empowering thought? And what am I choosing to attach to and make the
Sure.
meaning of from this situation?
Yeah, I can definitely say, like, from my experience, it's like you said, being present enough to go, wow, I responded to that differently, or I recovered so much faster. Oh my gosh, that didn't totally derail my day and consume all of my energy. I was
Mm-hmm.
able to happen. I was able to break it down in my head and I was able to respond in a different way. And I feel like that's a really good sign that, hey, you're doing the work and the work is really starting to pay off. So those
Mm-hmm.
are such great examples. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, this is such a powerful conversation. I could talk to you about this stuff all day
I know,
because
same.
it's so fun. Okay, so one of the things that I love to do because I don't feel like we are present enough to celebrate ourselves, especially as people that are trying to do big things. So I love to ask every guest about a magic moment you experienced this week that maybe you didn't take a second to celebrate that you could share with us and we could all celebrate with you.
Ooh, I love this. Well, tomorrow's my birthday and bachelorette party, and I'm not necessarily one that I love to host and let other people be the center of attention. So tomorrow will be a true testament of me doing the work on receiving and being present to that. But this is like a funny one. It's not business related. This was like a very
Yeah.
personal week for me. And yesterday, helping my sister prep her house because she's pregnant and has a little one and all the things. I did about 10 hours nonstop of physical labor yesterday.
What?
And while that could be one of those, like, why is that a celebration? When you know where I started with my
Yeah.
body And even 7 years ago, I had pushed my body so hard at a past job, I could not walk my dog to the corner. And so
Oh,
to be at that place where I was present with my body. I could feel the muscles. I could feel how everything was reacting. But I was like, I have more in the tank. Like, I feel like I'm present. I'm not dissociating. I'm not pushing past. And so it was that ability to be present in my body, to be mindful, but to also be like, holy cow, look at how strong you are again and what you've
oh,
come back from. So that
I
was a
have
big one for me.
I have chills for you. That is such an incredible magic moment and definitely one to be shared. Thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else you want to mention or leave our listeners with today?
Love. I would just say, be compassionate with yourself. We can easily be our own hardest critics, but most likely you're moving through enough in your life. Life is hard enough as it is. We do not need to be the person that needs to make it harder in between these two walls. And just if you are going through a dark moment, a dark season, just please hang in there, because I do trust, I do believe if you keep going, the answers will be presented to you. You will find a way through and it will get lighter.
Oh, I love that so much. You are a perfect example of magic being found in the mess. Thank you so much for being here today and for so openly sharing your story. And I can't wait to see you again soon.
Same. Thanks for having me. So appreciate you guys.
All right. Thanks, Magic Makers. We will see you next week.